And are these from a stockpile of existing depleted fuel rods that need to be dispensed of, or these 10,000 shipments are coming from power plants that are yet to go online up north, or how is that?
10,000 is the total number of trucks for all of it. So there are reactors south of Savannah River Site, but that's for the existing waste that would have, the waste that existed as of a year ago would be 10,000 shipments over a 2-decade period. That was what we had a year ago, with no new reactors, and if we shut them all down, that's what it would take to move what we had a year ago.
So we're still seeking a place to deal with 10,000 truckloads of waste, highly radioactive, terribly endangering everyone along the passage route, and yet we're still even considering building more of these machines?
For the first time, because the previous generation got it, that this is a bad plan. And they did not propose any new nuclear power plants for 34 years. How do you say you have a donut shop when you don't bake donuts for 34 years? The nuclear industry was dead and dying, and now we have a new generation of policymakers who've decided that their parents and grandparents didn't know what they were talking about, and golly gee, we better use nuclear for a variety of stories that we should unfold and tell in other editions of these tapes. But it's a false premise that the nuclear power generation can in fact make a huge difference in the climate crisis, and yet that is the justification that's being used to propose 29 new reactors, each of which would produce waste at an even faster rate because they're even bigger than the previous generation. And no, we still have nothing to do with the waste we already have.
It's a really dismal prospect. And what can citizens who are becoming aware, I mean, first of all, what assurances can we have that our safety will really be considered if FEMA is in such a state of incompetence, dare I say that?
I would not say FEMA is in a state of incompetence. FEMA is a responder agency. FEMA reacts to whatever the situation is. What we have is a lack of policy guidance from up top, from our elected officials who are proposing these little bits of insanity upon the rest of us. And we don't have enough wherewithal within our government to say, well, wait, let's step back here and look and go, is this really a good idea? No, it's not there. They're only thinking of today and maybe tomorrow as to what they can do to make the situation calm down on their watch.
Hold the status quo.
Yes.
But I want to give a really quick picture of the alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
The first point is that nuclear today is only 20% of our electricity. We need to phase out both coal and nuclear. It's entirely possible. We have the means to do that. And one of the fastest, cheapest, most profitable ways to do that is to stop wasting energy, and then that energy that we aren't wasting is still there and can be utilized in a different way. And so this is using the energy that's currently wasted. And one of the best ways to do that in terms of electricity is to make our buildings tighter, better insulated. The lighting of our buildings, the ventilation, heating, cooling, all those things use less energy. And today we have technology that does that and uses half the money of building new power plants and employs 90 times more people per dollar spent. So you can have a healthy solution that's quick and produces 12 to 24 times the results in terms of reducing carbon emissions than building a new nuclear power plant. So to put the numbers on it, to build and operate a reactor for its entire lifespan is $40 billion. To prevent the need for all the power the power plant would produce costs $20 billion. You create 400 permanent jobs over here, and can somebody tell me what 90 times that is? 3,600 jobs over here. So it's a happy thing to not build a reactor and to follow the path of using what we're currently wasting. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this radioactive waste that exists today exists, It has to be isolated from our environment for as long as it is hazardous. Our first call is if you've got a broken pipe, run for the wrench, not for the mop. So tell the elected officials that we don't want any more reactors and we do want to phase out the ones we have. Then, once we have a plan in place for taking care of this waste, move it once. Do not move it to a temporary site and then move it again. If you move it twice, you've incurred the hazards of this accident twice. So basically, it's not that hard, and people actually can have a huge impact. Over 400 reactors were planned in this country, only 120 were built, 103 operating today, and most of that work was done by communities and activists to say we want safe, healthy energy, we don't want nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Thank you, Bill. Any last questions from people?
Thank you.
If we just changed all the light bulbs and got rid of the heat balls, as they're called in Germany now,
Yeah.
that alone, you could turn off all the nuclear reactors. Now, I no longer say only turn off the reactors because we're also going to turn off coal, obviously.
Right. What is the total
So-
percentage of the nuclear and the coal as far as the
Well, the total
power?
percentage of nuclear and coal is the vast majority of power in this country, although renewables have now outstripped nuclear.
Yeah.
Nuclear is at 20% of electricity and 6% of total energy, and the renewables are now exceeding on total energy
Okay.
because of all the cogen and using the heat. So that's, but coal is the big project, and we totally support that.
Well, I guess aside from appealing to our politicians and the larger system that can hopefully prevent these actions, what can individuals do, I guess, to be prepared at least in the event of this accident?
If there's a nuclear accident that is unfolding in your neighborhood, there's a lot of things you need to know. And the first is that duct tape is a good thing to have. The second is that if you're living in North America while Fukushima is happening, it's a good idea to take a shower after you've been out in the rain. It's a good idea if everybody goes home and puts their clothes from this action camp in the washer and takes a good long shower, because we are getting Fukushima radioactivity in our rain here in North Carolina.
But our water in our shower is probably coming from some source that might.
Well, if you're saving rainwater for using in that way, we're really recommending people not drink it, because the water supplies, say, of Asheville are both surface and groundwater mixed, and there's old water from last year mixed, and so it's a dilution factor, so you're better off. But if you're saving straight rainwater, we're really recommending that people not drink that. Mm-hmm. So depending on the scenario, this kind of truck accident, probably they got the fire out within a couple hours, right? Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a relatively discrete amount of emissions that stopped the next day. If you have a meltdown of an actual nuclear power plant, Fukushima is not done yet, and it started in March. So really depends on what the scenario is. People are leaving Japan to live in New Zealand. But what do you do? I mean, around Ukraine, I was like heartbroken when Chernobyl happened. What do you do? I mean, we tried transplanting a population once, and it didn't go very well. So is it become a diaspora where people just spread out and they lose their continuity as a community? I mean, it's just really awesomely hard.
Yeah.
Awesomely hard.
One more question. What, as far as information, we see, so we've seen that the government isn't necessarily going to provide people with the information they need, but at the same time, there's the risk of panic, which can multiply the, I guess, risk for the larger population. Where can people turn for the best information?
And I actually want to sort of bracket what Bill said, which is totally right on. I'm not disagreeing with it, but on the other end, you have people in Japan who are refusing to be evacuated. Mm-hmm. Many of them are elders. They say, I'm going to die anyway. I want to stay where I am. Others were just plain not believing the government, which is rare in Japan because mostly they take the government's word for things there. So there's a whole spectrum of what happens in these pretty challenging situations. In the case of Fukushima, we got independent monitoring on the internet. So the existence of the internet enabled people to be putting out enough data to force the world radiation, you know, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Japanese Nuclear Agency, U.S. Nuclear Agency, all these layers, they started having to be more accountable and more honest because we were getting independent data on the internet. So that's a very valuable thing. People set up essentially blogs where others could post continuous data. So there's a lot, but there's not enough because they clearly knew, they had to have known that the earthquake caused the damage that it did at Fukushima and that the tsunami then added additional damage, but that the accidents were already in tilt before the tsunami hit. They had to have known that because even people as relatively self-educated as I could look at the data and go, whoa, you know. So, yes, spoken truth versus accessible truth versus community shared truth. They're all layers. Did you have them? I'm sorry. I thought you were asking. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Well, is there time for you to give us a little more detail? I know you talked about Fukushima earlier. I don't know if there are people here who were part of that workshop earlier or not.
Bill was.
Could you talk about that again now? It seems to be...
Do people want to stay? It's okay if you don't want to stay. But some people want to stay. Okay. So let's say we're complete on the truck transport piece because we'd like to have that
okay,
module.
And then turn it off and then turn it on again and then
or whatever.
Separate.
But yeah, some way to.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.